Power of Women podcast. Power of Women podcast.
So I'm here with Christina Clark-McQuaid and Jan Ryan, the founder and artistic director of POW Thanet, who I'm honoured to have taken the POW torch from, alongside the rest of the current POW team. I'm really excited to hear about those early days and the creation of something so special, and to honour and document this legacy for all to hear. Thank you for speaking to me today.
So I'm Christina Clark-McQuaid, and it goes back a very long way, because in the very early 80s I joined a women's group for the first time. I thought it was for flower arranging. It's not what I wanted. I was wrong. It was actually all about feminism, and at that point is when I became a feminist. So that's how I got onto being on the feminist wavelength. And
Was there any flower arranging on the side?
absolutely none, I'm pleased to say. I really wasn't interested in flower arranging. It was a WEA course.
Okay, well, I'm Jan, and I moved to Margate at the end of 2014. So in 2015, when Chris put out this call for people who might be interested in Women's Festival, I was really interested. And I was really interested because way back in the 80s, I was joint manager for Women's Theatre Group before it became Sphinx. And also, just before I moved to Margate, had just run a big festival of South African work. So I thought, this is fantastic. It brings together those two strands that I was that I've done in the past. So, you know, the idea of a women's focused organisation, but also a festival that was really inclusive.
Yeah.
So that first meeting, take us to the early days of POW then, and how it came about.
Well, I had worked as Thanet's Arts Development Officer between 1998 and 2008, so I had realised at that point about the number of creative people there were in Thanet at a very difficult time for Thanet and those creative people. And part of my strategy at that time was to try and develop the creative industries. But when I'd left in 2008, I was aware of how much still needed to be done, but I was working for another organisation. Come 2015, when I was no longer working at all, I thought, I know a lot of people in the creative industries and I know a lot of venue managers. What can I do? So I got in touch with all the venue managers by phone and email and meeting, and I said, would you be interested in celebrating International Women's Day for 2016? And they all said, yes, of course, and we'll offer the venue either free or cheap. And I thought, brilliant, that's a start. So then, as Jan said, I put out a Facebook call out for any people who are interested in celebrating International Women's Day through creativity of women. About 24 people got in touch.
Wow.
We set up an inaugural meeting in Margate House, which was the late Lana Van Zetter's place. And from there, it just completely took off. It was like pushing it an open door.
What did that first festival feel like?
The festival, a bit scary.
Yeah.
We did get a tiny little bit of funding from the Arts Council because it was just for marketing, because the idea was there would be all the creative people taking part would put something into the festival, and what we would do as POW would be to have a marketing umbrella to incorporate the venues and the people taking part. So really it was all those people contributing, and the marketing was just a little flyer which we got funding for. And personally, I thought it was going to be a one-off. I'd been inspired by the South Bank Women of the World Festival, and I just thought it was going to be a one-off. But as Jan knows, after that we couldn't put it down, because the response was just incredible, and the numbers of people, the audience, and everyone's saying, this has to go on. We can't. There are so many creative, particularly women and girls. So
and that feeling is still there completely, because that's exactly the response that we still get. This is such important work.
I know, and I feel really honoured that you've taken it on and that it's still running. It's 6 years later.
It's incredible, really, isn't it? It's an honour to do it, so thank you.
And I just also want to say that I think Jan and I because Jan came on board
Right at the beginning, there were about 6 of us who stuck to the 8 of us who stuck to the sides after that first meeting.
Yes. And the whole first year we did everything voluntarily. So there was a team of 8. Everyone was so passionate and gave their all. I think you were the finance director.
Oh God, I was.
Best job ever.
And we were supported by the Arts Council.
Great.
Every year.
I think it was more. Was it the second year that we started to make it? We made a couple of paid posts.
I think it may have been the second year.
Or the third.
I think it was the marketing person.
Yeah, the marketing
because
person.
It's so important. And so
we appointed a marketing person in the second year.
But some of what we did was because the Arts Council would have suggested it.
Yeah.
And if you wanted better funding, you have to sort of go along with the guidelines.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of it was because, well, I don't know about you, Jan, but I was just so bowled over by the response.
Yeah.
In a place that had been considered, to be honest, when I started working in Thanet, it was called Thanet Planet, the Cultural Desert. And I so hated that, and I really wanted to change that and have a legacy. So
you've really done that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's so impressive to make those paid roles, because we're 6 years into Pride, because I'm the kind of one of the equivalents of you with Pride of the founders, and we're still all unpaid. So I think to have that legacy of paying women, you know, if that's not the point of the festival, then what is? To really give back to the area and us all do it, because there's only so long you can kind of do things for free. So it's incredible. At what point did it have charity status then?
That was hard work.
Was that 2018
I mean, I can't thank you enough for doing the paperwork, because I've got a friend who's going through that, and I can't
think it was about 16. It must have been about the second or third one in.
I think it's about the third.
That's right, because actually it was Lana who mentioned at a meeting, you can't raise funds unless you're a charitable organisation, and we became a CIO.
First of all, weren't we a CIO?
CIO?
Yeah, we went straight into being a CIO. That's right. We could have become a CIC.
Was it years of work? I can't imagine.
I think it was one of the hardest things I've ever done. And I remember I was on holiday in Spain when it came through, and I got this message from one of the trustees, to say, we're a CIO, and I was sitting there in where Salvador Dali lived.
Figueres?
That's it.
Did you order a sangria immediately?
Very surreal.
I wasn't there, honest.
I bet. I mean, the work that must have gone into that, and the board of trustees and all the stuff attached to it. Yeah. It still blows my mind, even being one of the directors now. I just think what an incredible legacy and gift that you've given to all of us.
Yeah. But I do think a lot of it's about the team and how well we work together. And, you know, I don't think anyone can do anything unless you've got a really good team who are working. I just think we gelled.
It's really interesting, because people often ask me, I mean, we did become like Statler and Waldorf from the Muppets. You know.
Before we press record, they said something at the same time.
Absolutely. And we did. In fact, when Christina left, I gave her a Statler mug, or was it a Waldorf mug? We can't remember who was which. Was it both of them?
I use it every day for a cup of tea. Think about you, Jan.
There you are, you see. So we did become... But people say, you know, how did you divide up the work and who did what? But actually, do you know, I mean, we never really talked about it. No. We worked together so well, so seamlessly, and I always think of it as being one of the best professional collaborations I've ever had, Chris. You know, we just didn't even have to talk about who's like, okay, I'll do that. Well, I'll do that then, you know. So it was just like that.
Did what you were good at and respect
absolutely, completely.
We ended up with Jan being artistic director, and that was so her strength. And there was no way I was going to suggest I should do that, because that is utterly Jan's strength. And I was festival director, which basically meant if there were any problems, talk to Chris. But, you know, I still think we worked very, very well together.
Really
we used to have meetings over coffee in the town of Contemporary. Perfect. Jan would sit there and I'd sit here and she'd say, well, I think that. And we'd say something at the same time.
I know.
And they were on the same page.
And you knew you were on the same page.
Yes.
And if ever we did disagree, I always would defer to Chris anyway, because I felt that as the founder, you know, I mean, we hardly ever disagree. I don't remember disagreeing. But I always felt in my head that you were the founder, so, you know, you had to make the final decision.
Sometimes you need the final say.
Yeah.
That's interesting, because now we're 3 directors. And sometimes, like you say, there just has to be a decision made.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a disagreement, but it's more just, we actually just agree and get the job done.
Yes.
So it's an interesting stage now, and we do all check with each other. And I think we're working in a similar way in that we just know I do the jam programming stuff. Lindsay is the backbone. If there's anything that needs to come to her, she's brilliant at it, and she's the spreadsheet queen. And then Francesca's there really getting in the community, doing engagement stuff.
And everyone works to their strengths. And one of one of my personal, what I wanted with the team was that we were all equal. And you know, I've been in a lot of. I've worked for a long time with quite a well-known international festival, and the board meetings. I'm not going to name it because the board meetings weren't good. It was men all sitting and, I have to say, pontificating a lot of the time. And I just used to think we're wasting time here. This is not about actually the festival. It's about who has the loudest voice. And I always felt, I don't know if you agree, but as a team, I think it was non-hierarchical, really, even though there was an artistic director. But it just felt to me that it's the best way women can work, is on that equal and non-hierarchical level. And I think that's something that women can lead in running teams and groups like that, and not worrying about somebody needing to say more because they happen to be at the top.
It's
And
really
very
powerful
important.
stuff.
It is
I learned
powerful.
a lot from those early days when I was invited to come along and advise. What would my role have been? Remember in those early days when we'd sit around at Marines?
Yes,
You were
you were the advisor for... I remember you were on the advisory. Yes.
Can't really remember what that role was, but it was a real honour to be asked.
Advisory group,
And you come in and sit and listen to the ideas for the festival, because it's so utilitarian. What's the word?
Utilitarian.
Thank you. Everyone gets to say. So I felt really included, as previously having only been an audience member, although actually I think I might have been invited to be part of something. But that was so welcoming about POW, was that you just felt like it was for you and by you, even if you weren't on that board. Or you know, I remember standing outside Thanet and just crying, watching a choir, thinking this is really powerful stuff. And then what an honour to do what I do now. I mean, it's really, I count my lucky stars. So thank you both.
And also, I think it's about breaking down boundaries, because one of the things when I was all those years ago working as an arts officer, there was such, I mean, it still exists, but tribalism between Margate and Ramsgate particularly.
Yes.
And then if you're from Broadstairs, you don't go to either because who knows what's going to happen.
And if you're in London, that would just be the next town.
I know. And,
I've never known it like that before.
When I was brought up here and I went to school, so the areas that my school told me I wasn't allowed to go through, which I ignored. I just went straight through them because I thought, well, what's going to happen to me? Well, so the Newington estate, I just used to go through it with a friend. I think, why, these are people. And there's this awful... So if you were from Margate, you never went to Ramsgate, which I admit that was me as well. And one of the things about POW was the ability to break down boundaries, not just the hierarchical ones, but these
geographical ones.
And it's very, very difficult. I mean, I don't know how you feel.
I think it's having its impact, and I think the festival is part of that, actually. Because I think there's a spill across between the towns now, and you will go over to music hall to see a thing, and people come over here to eat. You know, admittedly, there are quite a lot more venues and things in Margate, so maybe that's, I don't know if that's added to that divide, or it just feels like there's bigger fish to fry.
I mean, it was one of the reasons, probably the main reason, that we opened the 2020 festival
over
in Ramsgate. You know, it wasn't everyone's venue of choice, but nevertheless, you know, opening at somewhere like Turner Contemporary is also other people's not venue of choice, and so it felt quite important. I mean, we chose where we did, which was is it called the Victorian Pavilion, because people felt very comfortable about going there. There were no kind of, you know, social barriers to going there, and just the fact of opening it in Ramsgate rather than in Margate became a really important thing to do.
Yes, crossing those boundaries here I think is one of the most difficult things to do, because it goes back so. I mean, having all the new people newcomers coming into the area, I think that's made a big difference. Because newcomers haven't brought that agenda with them. But there are still people. I mean, I was brought up here, even though I lived in London for 20 years. I remember that thing about if you're from one part, you never go to the other. I didn't go to Ramsgate till I was 15.
Wow.
And that's because I had a boyfriend from Ramsgate.
Oh, wow, it's like Romeo and Juliet.
Totally, well,
going to the other side. Modern day Thanet version.
Oh, God, yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes,
like,
the
you
gangs.
go to the other side. So one of my ultimate goals is to make the festival for every woman in Thanet, to have some impact in her life. And I don't know how, I still don't know how that's achievable, and that's what we've spoken about over the years, because art and culture, what's art and culture to one isn't to someone else. You know, the X Factor might be your art and culture reference point, or, you know, a high opera. So it's tricky, isn't it, to achieve that? But what were your ultimate goals when starting the festival, and do you feel like you achieved them, and what can I continue doing?
Well, it was only about 6 years ago, but it feels a very funny and strange thing to say, but one of my goals was to raise the profile of the fact there was an International Women's Day.
Yes, yeah.
Nobody had heard of it,
Yeah.
at least that's what I thought. And I looked on the website, and there was nowhere else in Kent celebrating International Women's Day except a little group at the University of Kent. So I just thought, if you don't pin this to something,
Yeah.
you know, you need to, yes, women are creative and there's lots around here, but I needed to pin it to something like that, and that's an international thing. So that was one of my first. But in terms of reaching all women, that's a very, very big and ambitious.
I know that's too big a thing, really.
If I come in on that for a second,
Yes.
I mean, I do think it's incredibly difficult, and I think it's probably unachievable.
Yeah.
But I think and certainly you can't create a festival where all women, or even majority of women, are going to engage with majority of stuff.
Yeah.
But you can create a festival where most women will find something that they like in it.
Yeah.
You know, so you're looking at age, you're looking at stuff for young women and stuff for older women, you're looking at stuff across social demographics, and also getting a whole range of people involved in actually what do they want.
Yeah.
I mean, in 2000 for the 2019 festival, was it the 2020 festival? Was it the 2019? It was.
Is it the sortition thing we're going to say?
Yes.
Yeah.
Was that
That would have been
2019 or 20?
coming into the 21, but then
It was
it's a bit confusing
20.
because sometimes you're planning it in 19 for the 20
That's right. So
festival,
it was for the 2020 festival, and the intention there was to select a group of women, which happened. For that to be done quite randomly, which happened, and I think had quite a wide range of different kinds of people in it. But and then that group was going to at least curate a part of the festival,
Yeah.
and then of course lockdown happened. And I guess it all fell to bits.
Well, no, the community programmers are still with us, so we run ideas by them. So
Fantastic.
that's
So-
a lasting legacy from you. So
Fantastic.
yeah.
Well, I mean, that's one way, I think, in which you try and create a festival which is what people want rather than what you think they want.
Yeah.
And that's the only way I think you
Well,
can
that's
do it.
the interesting thing with funding, isn't it? Because you're kind of projecting what you would like to receive the money for, and that's why I love the process of the POW entry by going is an open call. You can say, I want to do a show, or I want to write a thing, or I've got some artwork, I'd like to be part of a wider exhibition. So that real kind of everyone is welcome here, you can give it a go type feel. I'd love that to feel like that for the audience member too. But yeah, that process, I know it's unachievable to impact every woman, but for somehow... That's why I liked doing it in the Victoria Pavilion, because there were some real builders, and I had the power of women written on the back of my jumpsuit, and some real builder guys were like, yeah, power of women, and I was like, yeah. And so it might have had an impact.
You mind saying at this point how when it first began, I fully expected, knowing the way things could be in Thanet,
Yes.
I fully expected to meet with a great wall of
What about Men's Day?
Exactly.
Yes, a bit of
Discontent
that, a
from
bit of
men.
that.
Yeah.
None of it. It was absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
The men, some of the venue managers were male, and men wanted to take part for various reasons. And I just thought, nothing's going to change until the way men think change, and boys. And going back to the inclusiveness and the outreach work, you won't reach all women, but by working with girls, and I think you probably work with High Factory Music.
Yes. Yeah.
they'll talk to their friends.
Yeah, that's
and,
the way.
And it affects them, and they might not say much, but when they're older, they're going to remember it.
Totally.
So the outreach work and the involving young people is... Because I remember the first year we did it, we worked with a lot of older women, and then we were told on the feedback forms, there's not enough for young women. So then the following year we did lots for the young women, and the feedback forms said,
not enough for older women. I know.
Absolutely. No matter how hard you try, and you can only do what you're doing.
Totally, yeah. You know, we found the same thing with Pride, where we had that feeling, are people going to respond? And they were just so open arms, full of love.
Yes.
So I think people they're kinder than we give them credit for. People want these things to happen, and it's credit to you for starting this, because how we've all followed and from your lead is the proof is that we want this. We want equality.
Yes.
We want everyone to be able to come along and celebrate women for more than just one day a year.
Yes.
Exactly.
That's my other goal, is that we can do things further than just one day. But one day is a good start.
I think we made it. How long was the first festival? Was it 5 days?
5 days.
And then the following year, did it go to 2 weeks? Oh, it was
I knew it was the last one I did was 10 days. Because it always was where the weekend fell.
Yeah, that's right.
So we used to start it during the week and then run it through to the end of the weekend.
Yes.
And then for the last festival, for 2020, I think it opened on the Friday.
Yeah.
So we ran it through to the 2 weekends and the weekend.
So next year, Women's Day falls on the Tuesday. So I'm just working out maybe doing the weekend before or how we're going to do it. But then we've introduced a fringe. So that can continue throughout March, and people can just... And maybe at the last minute they go, I want to do a poetry slam.
Excellent.
And then they can just take ownership of that, and we just help promote it.
Yeah.
So that's good, because sometimes you may not have got your application form in 6 months in advance. We're not all super organised. So we wanted to make space for that, which actually sort of frees up, is a bit of a relief, because it's like, when you get so many people apply and you think how, especially if we don't get our Arts Council funding, everything is funding dependent, you have that leeway space to say, you could include that in the fringe. And we're also thinking about next year's theme, and we're looking at stuff around reconnection and reigniting and well-being and finding each other again.
That's a very good post.
Yes.
Well, we hope.
Yeah. Well, this is what's been interesting as the current artistic director to have started, and then we went into a lockdown halfway through the 2020 festival.
We did.
It was that March, and really I've done one festival in a lockdown online, which I'm very proud of, the digital festival.
I think you did brilliantly.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely brilliantly.
But I'm so excited to do real life events again and what that will feel like. And there's such an urgency around the feminist agenda. There's so many things that we need to address. And I don't know if you have any advice or thoughts around how do you prioritise the urgency around... this is a huge question as well, so I'm no pressure to answer it, but it's kind of like, I get that on a local level, that reconnecting and, we've been at home, so we're stepping out of our homes, but then the wider global problems, it's kind of...
global problems, I think, are global problems.
Yeah.
I think what you probably need to look at is nearer home. And if you've got women who are involved in... It sounded like you've got women involved in curating in the community, maybe ask them what's their most... you're going to have... There's always going to be the problem of domestic violence, and there's always going to be the problem of race, and that's never going to go away. But I maybe ask the community, the people who are involved already, ask them to go out and ask their groups, and maybe come up with the top 3.
How do we prioritise?
And also it's an age thing. What's really important to me isn't going to be the same as what's really important to my 13-year-old granddaughter. So it's all very...
It's just ever evolving, isn't it? As the years flow by, what will be important to my son is 3. His peers.
Exactly.
It's kind
exactly.
I can find it quite overwhelming, because I've got this urgency to sort of do the best I can for everyone, and I feel a real responsibility. Like, I'm proud of it, but I'm also, I've been past this thing that I want to deliver on so well. And I suppose, I'm really just grateful to have you as mentors and to get this opportunity to talk about it. It's really useful too, because it's a role that you want to do the best for your town and for the women in it, and that's what the point of it is. And
I think one of the things I learned from Jan when she was artistic director is you were very focused. So we both knew there were a lot of issues, and we both knew that you're not going to be able to cover them all.
Yeah.
So Jan's ability to focus on, I think I'm right. I mean, we haven't worked together for a couple of years.
I know. I'm trying to think what I focused on. I'm sure I did.
You always, I mean, you focused on the fact we were going to have a couple of big paid-for events.
Yes.
And that was, I think a lot of that was about quality.
Definitely.
Because you were very focused on the quality, and I completely agree about that. And I think if you did that, it was always around, you know, by and for women. But I think if you can focus on just maybe three main issues, because I understand, I mean, you can lie awake at night and think about the global problems and I'm never going to solve them, and you just go around in circles, and you have to accept it's not going to happen.
And then you read some horrific news story about an awful thing happening to a woman.
I know.
My goodness.
And I think often that Chris is right, you know, we would try and choose 2 or 3 kind of really high profile things to do. And then often they would determine what the theme was.
Yeah.
I can remember we did, the year that we did We Are the Lions, Mr. Manager.
Yes.
And it was a whole festival about protest because it coincided with the centenary of the suffragettes.
Yes.
So, you know, it was all around that. So, you know, then that linked the sort of past and the present.
Yeah.
And I know that, you know, Greenham has been a really important one. And the Greenham event I thought that you did was just phenomenal. Absolutely fantastic.
First thing we could do in real life. It was
First
fun,
thing. So I think sometimes, you know, artists have a feel for what that zeitgeist is, and often that's the work you're attracted to, and then that determines the thread that runs through the festival.
And then, what do you hope that a core value of POW is that you would hope to see in any POW event maybe a feeling or that the audience would get from it?
I think it's that 2-liner, I don't know whether you still use it, but about what was our sub. You know, our POW had a subtext of to celebrate, and I can't remember what it is now, but the women, the achievements and creativity of women and girls.
Yeah.
That was always the core value.
Yeah.
And I'm ashamed to say,
I
I can't remember what that
was.
is. That's those two.
Well, when you're saying it every day, it probably just stayed in my head.
I think it's probably unless things have changed, it's probably on the website, but it's about celebrating
She looks quickly at the website.
the creativity of women and girls and their ability to do things differently. You know, I don't think we need to follow always the way, like I was saying earlier about board meetings. We don't have to do things like that.
Yeah.
And to me, that's the core, no matter whether they're very, they're women with very little income or women who earn loads, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's their way of approaching things.
But yeah, it's coming back to why are we doing this again, and who is it for, and keeping that focus. I wanted to ask you what you imagined 2050 POW to look like.
Well, I think it's really interesting even now, because the whole definition of being a woman and of gender is something that has shifted so much from when we started POW. And I imagine that I hope that by 2050 there is no POW. Actually, that's my wish. That actually we are all human beings.
Yeah, power of everyone.
It's the power of everyone, and that, you know, maybe that these festivals and initiatives which are based on quite sort of traditional and defined definitions of what that group is, perhaps there'll be so much blurring, which there is already, that will be how we celebrate.
Yeah, well, that's my dream, that we don't need pride.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, I agree. I mean, people shouldn't be defined by gender. I agree completely with that. And there shouldn't be these things where you have to fill out with your MF or other. You know, why on earth does it matter?
Yeah.
I think with some way, but maybe 2050?
All the box ticking is just a thing of this time, isn't it? Yeah, and it really, we've discussed, do we say anyone who identifies as a woman, and there was language around using woman with an X in it, but actually did a talk with Gendered Intelligence, who are a charity doing really good talks around this stuff, and they advise that we don't use women with an X because trans women want to be just defined as women.
Yeah.
So to sort of pinpoint their transness isn't the point either. So we're doing lots of discussion around that language as well. But yeah, I totally agree. It would be great that we didn't need an International Women's Day, but potentially in 2050 we still will.
I don't know. I honestly don't know.
Yeah, I think how far ahead it is.
Yeah.
28 years.
About. I meant arithmetic.
Yeah.
No, I think that's good, Chris. 28 years.
Is that right?
29
That's
maybe.
good.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Around that. Yeah, so I just wanted to thank you both, really, and to finish, maybe to think about a fun POW memory that you both have of something wonderful that had happened, or a particular event or moment that you'll always look back on and go, oh, that was a great time for POW.
Oh, my fondest, one of my fondest, one is of those early days in Lana's room where it was so unbelievably cold, and we'd be sitting around a table made out of pallets with all, our coats and scarves and hats and gloves on, and the Cala gas heater in the background. And you'd think, why are we doing this? So that was one of my memories. And I think my other memories have usually been when we've had community choirs involved in things, and they've always been really, really special. The processions and the choirs, things where you feel have really brought people together.
For me, I think it was absolute pride and overwhelming emotion on that first opening night at the Turner Contemporary. All these people standing in the Turner Contemporary, all there for our opening, and I'm thinking, I don't know how many there are, a couple of hundred, maybe more. And I've just started this, and then the next feeling, oh my God.
Exactly, now we've got to do it.
Jan coming up and saying, we're going to have to put in a much bigger bid next year. Oh no!
I know that feeling, yeah.
And now I just feel I'm really happy and joyful actually about the fact that you're here.
Yes, me
it
too,
on.
completely.
There's a legacy being left, and I mean, I'm from Thanet, and there are many times when I almost gave up in despair when I worked at the council as the arts officer in a very, very barren environment before the Turner Contemporary had been built. And just the whole, for me it was about how everybody pulled together, how I couldn't believe I was pushing at open doors the whole time that first year with the venue managers, Theatre Royal, the Turner, loads of venue, Tom Thumb Theatre, and it was just, I'm not having to struggle here. The people want this is the right time, it's exactly the right time.
When it flows like that, it's right.
Yeah. And then I think it was the following year, I think it was the Me Too movement. That's
right. That's right.
Well, no, it was just meant to be.
Oh yes.
And that was that wonderful scene.
That song, I can't keep quiet. That was that was a real POW moment for me.
Very powerful.
So I attended as a punter then and saw the signs, the keep quiet signs, and saw that and cried my eyes out.
A wonderful banner that they got taken out to London.
Yes.
There's been so many moments. Many moments. And actually I miss that team. I still miss
So do I.
working with them.
Yeah, definitely. I miss the POW team.
The ripple effect, you'll never even know the people's lives it's touched. And that's why it's so important to document this, because you really, from my heart, started something so powerful. Thank you. It's such an honour.
Yeah.
Bless you. Thank you. Exactly.
It's a difficult task.
I do the best I can, and I think this is what it's about, isn't it? Communication and dialogue, and going, what can we do next? And every day I'm checking in, am I the right person to be doing this still? I feel like I am. I'm looking forward to getting my chance to do a real live festival.
It'd be so nice.
The thing is, you get it. And this was all about the team. Everyone that they got it. It's
when you know,
just get it. Exactly.
Yes.
If it feels right.
Yeah,
that's how honestly it does feel like that now with our team. Thank you both for coming today and talking to me.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for
being part of the POW podcast. Thank you, Chris and Jan. I hope we make you proud, and thank you for trusting us to continue your good work. And thank you from me personally for trusting me and being such great mentors and inspirations. Knowing you're at the end of the phone makes my job so much easier. I hope we can nurture women in the way you did me. Thank you so much.
Power of Women Podcast. Power of Women Podcast.